At the start of the movie, we see a couple being pursued by a local criminal gang led by the notorious Chong. They make their way into the woods and decide to hide themselves behind the trees. However, their efforts prove to be futile as the gangsters are able to locate them easily. As a result, the couple is viciously assaulted and killed by the three gangsters. In the next scene, we are introduced to a couple named Yod and Bua, who reside in a rural village. They are deep in love and have vowed to marry each other when the time comes. However, their relationship faces opposition from Yod's family because Bua is a mute girl. Her family background is also complicated as her father abandoned them for another woman. Nevertheless, Yod remains undeterred by these circumstances and is resolute in his desire to marry Bua. On a particular day, Yod and Bua are by the nearby river gathering crabs for their meal. While returning home with a bucket full of food, a group of local troublemakers unexpectedly throws a stone at Bua and runs away. This causes the innocent girl to bleed, so Yod quickly escorts her back home. Once there, Bua's mother tends to her wounds and asks her to rest for some time. After this, she engages in a private conversation with Yod about his relationship with Bua. She advises him to stop seeing Bua, saying that he deserves a better spouse and better in-laws. However, Yod firmly asserts that he disregards the opinions of the villagers and that his love for Bua surpasses all other considerations. Despite all these objections from families and villagers, Yod and Bua continue their relationship. They spend a lot of time together in activities such as fishing, cooking, and sharing meals. Chong and two of his companions also reside within the same village. They seem to have no work to do and as a result, they keep wandering aimlessly around the village, subjecting the villagers to torment and harassment. They sustain themselves by stealing from the hard-working residents. The leader, Chong, has a wife who frequently chastises him for his irresponsible behavior, but he pays little attention to it. One day, as Yod and Bua return after catching some fish, they are intervened by Chong and his men. The gangsters snatch the bucket filled with fish, and Chong begins to harass Bua. Yod attempts to defend her but the men easily overpower him. Fortunately, Chang's wife arrives in the nick of time, and breaks up the scuffle. Later that evening, Yod's father, as usual, implores Yod to relocate to Bangkok and find a job there. He believes that it is the only way they can earn some money. However, Yod declines, saying he prefers the tranquility of the village over the chaotic city life. The following morning, a dwarf thug steals a bunch of bananas from a store before hastily making his escape. Coincidentally, Bua passes by the same shop while carrying bananas in her hands. As a result of this, the shopkeeper wrongly assumes that she is the thief and subjects her to rude insults. Being mute, poor Bua is unable to prove her innocence and starts crying. Later that day, Yod's mother pays a visit to Bua's mother and tells her to keep Bua away from her son because she will never accept a mute girl as her future daughter-in-law. Overhearing their conversation from a distance, Bua is left disheartened. After this, she makes her way to the fields and begins crying. She cannot understand why the entire village hates her. Soon after, Yod approaches her and hugs her tightly, promising that he will never leave her side. He also assures her that they will get married soon. Later on, the couple proceeds to the river for fishing. As Yod busies himself with adjusting the fishing net, Chong and his gang stealthily arrive at the scene and abduct Bua. They whisk her away to the woods, where Chong forcefully attempts to undress her. Bua valiantly tries to fight back, but her resistance only results in further violence inflicted upon her. Meanwhile, Yod becomes aware of his girlfriend's disappearance and, upon searching the surroundings, discovers her abandoned slipper. This makes him realize that Bua is in danger, so he runs into the woods and starts calling out her name. Shortly after, he spots the gangsters brutally assaulting Bua, prompting him to engage in a fierce brawl against them. Unfortunately, Yod is of no match, and he is easily overpowered and knocked out. After this, Chong forces himself onto the poor girl, and then murders the couple in cold blood. The gangsters then bury Yod and Bua in an undisclosed location within the woods. That night, Bua's mother anxiously waits for her daughter to return home. However, when the night passes without any sign of Bua, she decides to visit Yod's family, hoping they may have information. To her dismay, she discovers that Yod has also not shown up. Later, the two sets of parents head out to search for their missing children. When they reach the fields, they stumble upon the belongings left behind by Yod and Bua, further intensifying their worries. Soon after, they receive information from a villager, who informs them that Chong and his gang were pursuing the couple the previous day. With this knowledge, the parents confront Chong at his place, but as expected, the notorious gang leader threatens them and sends them away. Finding themselves at a loss, the grieving parents decide to report their children as missing at the local police station, even expressing their suspicion towards Chang's gang. However, the police insist on concrete evidence before entertaining any suspicions. Moreover, the head officer speculates that the couple may have chosen to leave for bigger cities to start a new life together. In the next scene, we are introduced to a member of Chang's gang, Lek. He is roaming alone in the woods, burdened by guilt and unable to escape the weight of their heinous actions. Shortly after, Chong and another gang member named Fed approach him, asking if he is alright. Lek confesses that he is feeling like crap these days and even suggests turning themselves in. Hearing this, an enraged Chong brings out his gun, and points it at Lek. He says that he will shoot him dead if the police find out about their deeds. Following this, the trio heads deep into the woods for a hunting expedition. As they try to find some animals, surprisingly, they are haunted by Bua's spirit. This forces the gangsters to run away from the woods as soon as they can. That same night, they are seen enjoying with some girls, indulging in drinks and narcotics. In the midst of their activities, Lek excuses himself to take a leak. As he begins the process, he unexpectedly notices a girl dressed in white, lying on the ground. Lek slowly approaches her and turns her over, only to discover that it is Bua. This terrifies him, so he quickly retreats to his friends. After winding up their gathering, the gangsters return to their respective houses, only to be plagued by haunting visions of Bua. Lek, in particular, goes to his bed but continues to see Bua's spiritual form, seemingly on the verge of attacking him. This nightmarish ordeal deprives him of sleep throughout the night. In the morning, Lek confides in Fet, sharing the haunting experiences he has endured. To his surprise, Fet reveals that he has also encountered similar visions. Lek proposes that they depart from the village and seek employment in larger cities. He also points out that they will be doomed if the villagers find out their heinous deeds. However, Fet urges practical thinking, saying it will be impossible for people like them to find jobs. Afterwards, the trio is once again seen in the forest, engaged in hunting activities. This time, Lek's visions of Bua intensify, compelling him to flee for his life. While running away, he is suddenly struck on the head hard with a wooden branch, resulting in his death. Later that night, Fet, too, falls victim to a relentless nightmare that deprives him of sleep. Seeking solace, he retreats to the restroom to freshen up, only to be haunted by the spirit of Yod. Fearing that he will also get killed, Fet visits a nearby temple early the very next morning and offers prayers for his preservation. After this, he meets with Chong and resolves to confess their crime to the villagers. But once again, the gang leader becomes angry and punches Fet in the face, commanding him to remain silent. When the latter still keeps on insisting, Chong beats him up viciously. That night, Chong endures a chilling dream in which he is bound to his bed, tormented by the ghosts of Yod and Bua, who approach him menacingly with an axe. The following day, as Fet is fishing at a nearby river, he is startled by a haunting sound. He looks around but finds no one in sight. Suddenly, a splash in the water startles him further. Terrified, Fet attempts to flee, but he is caught by someone from behind and forcefully submerged underwater. The unfortunate deaths of Lek and Fet fills Chang's father with concern, so he urges Chong to confess his bad deeds, warning him of a similar fate if he fails to do so. However, Chong refuses to acknowledge any wrongdoing, fearing that he will be imprisoned. Unbeknownst to Chong, the vengeful spirits of Yod and Bua are closing in on him. During the night, Chong is sleeping beside his wife when he hears a sound coming from the kitchen. Startled, he wakes his wife, asking if she heard the sound too. However, she scolds him for disturbing her sleep and goes back to bed. Soon after, Chong hears the same sounds once more, instilling a sense of dread within him. He gets up to switch on the lights, only to discover that the tube light is malfunctioning. Gripped by fear of the dark, he attempts to light a candle, but it mysteriously extinguishes itself. Just then, the spirit of Bua materializes before him, scaring the life out of him. In response, Chong hastily grabs a knife and repeatedly stabs the ghostly figure. However, he soon realizes that he has stabbed his own wife, resulting in her death. Chong cannot believe what he has done and starts crying like a baby. Right then, an unidentified figure appears behind him and strikes him unconscious. After a while, Chong regains his senses and finds himself restrained. To his astonishment, Yod and Bua appear in front of him, both seemingly alive. Here, the truth is finally revealed. Shortly after the gangsters had buried the couple, the rain poured down, causing them to regain their consciousness from their lifeless state. Then, despite their injuries, they somehow managed to free themselves from the suffocating mud. Supporting one another, they tended to their wounds and took shelter in the forest for several days. Slowly but surely, they recuperated, fueled by an unwavering determination to seek vengeance for the evil deeds committed against them. Believing that it will take evil to destroy evil, they began to haunt their tormentors to the worst extent possible and then killed them one after another. Hearing their revelation, Chong pleads for his life, resembling the plea once uttered by Bua in the past. However, with the tables now turned in the couple's favor, they disregard his pleas and finish him off, finally completing their revenge.